A quiet stranger and a hungry child. The wind kicked up dust hard enough to sting. Clay Thatcher squinted against the grit, tugging his battered coat tighter around his shoulders as he stepped from the barn. The sun hung low, bleeding red across the horizon. One of his cows wheezed in the paddock, too old to sell, too stubborn to die. That's when he saw her. A small figure slumped by the water trough, skin cracked, limbs trembling, a tangle of black hair caked with dirt. She didn't look up, just clutched something wrapped in cloth. A doll, maybe. Her lips barely moved, but he heard it, a dry rasp like sandpaper. Water. Clay didn't speak. He walked to the trough, dipped his tin cup, and knelt. She flinched at his shadow. He set the cup down slowly, then stepped back, boots crunching dry earth. After a moment, she crawled to it, shaking hands, bringing it to her mouth. She drank like it hurt. Inside the barn, he rummaged. A hunk of jerky, half a biscuit wrapped in a saddle rag. He laid them on a blanket, then walked it back out, laid it beside her like a prayer. She didn't thank him, just ate, quiet and fast, until the biscuit crumbled in her fingers. Voices drifted from the ridge. Clay didn't look. He knew them. She with him? Damn Injun kid. Probably stole from someone. Or worse. Clay turned his back on them, just pulled the barn door wider, nodded once at the girl. She stared at him, unsure. He walked inside, slow and calm. After a beat, she followed. Inside, the barn smelled of cedar and age. Clay handed her a canteen, then gestured toward a pile of hay stacked beside the wood stove. She lay down without a word, the doll still clutched to her chest. He stoked the fire, gave her a wool coat to curl into. No names, no questions. Outside, a man shouted, "You keeping her in there, Thatcher?" Clay didn't answer. He closed the barn door, bolted it. The wind picked up again, moaning across the land. The voices outside faded. Later, as the fire burned low and shadows stretched long, the child finally spoke. Her voice was barely a whisper. "They kill my mother." Clay sat still, staring into flame. "My uncle said, go to the mountains. But I didn't make it." She looked up at him. "Why'd you help me?" He met her eyes, just for a moment, then reached for a pan, poured a bit of oats, and set them to warm. Outside, coyotes howled in the distance. Inside, the barn held silence like it had weight. And Clay, who once had another name, watched the child sleep beside the fire, one hand on her doll, the other on his old coat. He didn't sleep that night. Too many footsteps echoed in his memory. Too many he feared might come tomorrow. The riders of the Red Dawn. The ground trembled before the sun touched the valley. Clay stood in the barn doorway, rifle in hand but barrel down. Across the field, the horizon boiled with dust. Horses, rows of them, riders silent as stone, faces painted in ochre and ash, spears rising like a forest of bone. 200 strong, not a war cry among them. The town bells rang late. From the church steeple, Sheriff Macer peered through a spyglass. "Christ almighty," he muttered, stepping back. "They come for blood." At the saloon, men scrambled for their rifles, knocking over chairs and cards. Widow Greaves screamed from her porch, clutching her boy. By the well, old Jeb spit into the dirt and whispered, "I told y'all about that stranger." Clay didn't move. The girl stood beside him now, barefoot, her small hand gripping his coat hem. The warriors dismounted in perfect unison. Dust settled. Silence thickened. One man stepped forward, tall, lean, scar striped across his jaw. His stare met Clay's like a knife pressed flat against skin. "You remember me," the warrior said. Clay nodded once. The sheriff rode hard up the hill, breathless. "Thatcher, what the hell did you do?" Clay didn't answer. "They planning to take her back? What is this, vengeance? A damn ritual? Speak, man." The warrior's voice cut through the air. "We come not to take. We come to stand." Macer paled. "Stand? Against what?" The warrior looked at Clay, then at the girl, then to the hills. "Those who hunt children. Those who hide behind law." Clay's grip on the rifle shifted. Still down. Still waiting. The townsfolk gathered behind Macer, murmuring, "Why so many? Why not just him? What's that old drifter done?" From behind the war line, another figure stepped forward. A woman elder, wrapped in red cloth and eagle feathers. She raised a hand toward Clay. spoken words the townsfolk didn't know, but Clay did. A few of the braver men flinched. One cocked his repeater. Clay raised a palm. The crowd fell still. Then a single warrior stepped from the line and tossed something at Clay's feet. A cavalry insignia, bent, scorched, the brass dulled by time. The murmurs turned into gasps. Is that? Where'd he get that? I thought them units got wiped in the Red Gorge. Sheriff Macer looked at Clay, horror creeping behind his eyes. Who the hell are you? Clay didn't speak, just bent down, picked up the insignia, and slid it into his coat pocket like burying a ghost. Behind him, the child stepped forward. The warriors stood taller, and the sun broke over the ridge, painting them all in crimson light. The fire before the thunder. The fire cracked low, sending smoke curling into the stars. Clay sat cross-legged across from Chief Talaco, the child asleep behind them in a nest of wool and silence. Around the perimeter, the warriors stood like trees, unmoving, eyes scanning the dark. Talaco tossed a cedar branch into the flames. They say you died at Red Gorge. Clay didn't blink. Maybe I should have. Talaco nodded. But you didn't. You rode against your own. Clay's hands hovered near the firelight. Scarred knuckles, calloused palms. Wasn't my own anymore. Talaco leaned forward, shadows dancing across the creases of his weathered face. The women you helped escape that day, they were my kin. One was my daughter. The child you save now is her blood. Clay looked away. A coyote howled far off in the canyons. 27 dead, Talaco said softly. All because you threw down your rifle and turned it on the bluecoats. I remember, Clay muttered. I see their faces every night. Silence settled like ash. The fire popped. You carry shame, Talaco said. But you should carry the truth instead. Clay's voice cracked. Truth is, I ran. I couldn't stop what they started. I couldn't save enough. Talaco studied him a long while. You saved who you could. That is not running. That is standing. From the barn, the child stirred in her sleep. Clay glanced over. She'd pulled the doll close, her cheek against the coat he'd given. She will be hunted, Talaco said. Clay nodded. They won't stop. Men like that don't quit. Then let us finish it. Clay looked at him. You come here for war? I come to give you a choice. Let us leave, or let us stand with you. Clay said nothing. Talaco placed something in the dirt between them, a long knife in a beaded sheath. The same pattern Clay remembered from 20 years back. He closed his eyes. The screams. The fire. The children fleeing through brush while bullets chased them. He reached forward, took the knife, held it tight. No running this time, he said. Talaco smiled faintly. The ghost of war returns. From the ridge, an owl cried into the dark. The wind stirred the tall grass. Warriors began to kneel one by one around the fire, forming a circle of silence. In the center sat the man the town called Clay Thatcher. But by firelight, the old name came back like a drumbeat in his chest. The gunfire that echoed for generations. The hooves hit first, fast, hard, many. Clay stepped into the main street, just as the dust cleared. 6 riders, broad-shouldered and mean-eyed, bearing old cavalry badges like trophies on their coats. Their leader, a thick-necked man with a scar down his lip, grinned like a wolf who smelled blood. Elijah Thatcher, he called, voice raw from whiskey and war. Ain't you supposed to be dead? Clay didn't answer, just kept walking. The townsfolk had cleared out, doors bolted, curtains trembling. Sheriff Macer stood on the saloon porch, sweating bullets and holding his hands in the air like they'd do him any good. You made promises, Macer hissed as Clay passed him. I broke worse, Clay replied. The child stood at the edge of the barn, clutching her doll. Behind her, warriors began to line the fences, quiet, unmoving. 200 of them, watching. The gang dismounted slow, cocking rifles, their leaders stepping forward. You know why we're here? He spat. That kid's worth gold to the right buyer. She's a blood witness. Government don't want no witnesses. Clay kept walking until the barrels faced him point blank. He stopped 10 paces away, hand loose at his side, dust swirling around his boots. Still think you can outdraw 6 men? The leader mocked. Clay raised his eyes. I ain't alone. The gang laughed. Then the war chant began, low, deep, rising behind him like a mountain waking. The riders hesitated. The leader barked, stand down. But the sound rolled on, louder, older than any man in that town. And Clay, Elijah, breathed deep once. Then drew. The flash of iron was a blur. First shot, through the leader's throat. He dropped like a felled steer. Second, center chest. Third, between the eyes. The fourth man got off a wild shot, grazing Clay's shoulder, but he was down before he screamed. The last two ran. They didn't get far. Warriors moved like smoke, silent, lethal. Spears found hearts. Hoofs trampled steel. And then, silence. Clay stood alone in the street, the wind blowing his coat aside to show the old cavalry pistol still smoking in his grip. Sheriff Macer looked on, pale, shaking. What now? Clay turned. You let him come. You held the gate open. He tossed his badge into the dirt. The warriors gathered around the child. She didn't look scared. She looked proud. Tulaco stepped forward, placed a hand on Clay's shoulder. The ghost rides no more, he said. Now he rests. Clay looked toward the rising sun. Blood dried on his sleeve. The town behind him would never be the same. And far into the future, they'd still tell the story of the man who fed a child and stood before an army. Alone, but never alone.